Great. Did it tell you it's recording?
Mm-hmm. Hello, hello. How is everybody doing today?
Hi, I'm good.
Good, good.
Great, thank you.
Wonderful.
Good.
Looks like we got a full crowd here today. 20 folks. Any more in the waiting room, Elizabeth? All right, we are going to get started in just a few minutes. I do see Corey on, I believe. Corey, did you want to get started or did you want us to get started?
You guys are welcome just to go right on. Good afternoon,
right.
everyone. Glad to have you join us.
Great. Okay, so we have about, let's see, we have about 25 people here, and I have up a do now, and I would love to just give some context. We are going to have a little bit of work time here at the end, and a couple of times in the middle. So if you want to be in a group, if your group is here, go ahead and send a private chat to Nebraska Professional Learning, learning with the name of your group chat that you'd like to have. I know we sometimes have a group from Lincoln or Omaha. So if you would like to have a group together, just send a private chat over to Nebraska Professional Learning, and Elizabeth will help you get in a chat with some of your fellow colleagues there when we do have that group time. And then if you could just go ahead and put in the main chat, we would love to hear from you. What structures do you currently have in place to train teachers and leaders? Whether that's in your larger district, in your school, we would love to hear what structures you already have in place for that. Lizzie or Elizabeth, are you able to see the chat? Do you have any answers coming in yet?
We have a lot of group requests, so this is good for me. We have Omaha Public Schools. We will have an ESU group. We will have a few other groups that we're coming up with some names for. And then Steve says they have new teacher meetings, monthly instruction meetings with elementary leaders, monthly principal meetings, and then curriculum days.
Oh, good. Lots of different structures.
Professional learning communities, individual coaching meetings, and then weekly collaboration time from Rebecca.
Okay, great. Well, this is a good start for us to get a little bit of a feeling of what different structures you guys have in place to train your teachers and leaders. Keep thinking through that, because this whole training today is about planning training for teachers and leaders on a lot of the things that we have been discussing the last couple of weeks. Once again, your TNTP team, we have Chris Henderson, I'm Caitlin McDermott. We have Elizabeth Lamont Mitchell today running the Nebraska Zoom line, and Shireen will be joining us shortly. We have some netiquette. Of course, feel free to participate in the way that feels most comfortable to you. Prioritize this learning experience. We really want you to, we know that everybody's experiencing this on the Zoom line, so we want you to be just mindful of the distractions that go along with having PD on your computer. Take this moment to really ready yourself for this experience. Elizabeth is going to drop a document in the chat in a few minutes, and we'll have you pull that up and make a copy. And then just limit any background noise when you come off of mute so that we can hear all of your wonderful thoughts and what you have to contribute to our time together today. Man, we have been on a journey together. This is session 7. And so we have talked about the structures and processes to set up your school or district to ensure a focus on learning acceleration. The last 2 sessions have been really focused on high quality instruction for ELA and math. And today we are going to focus on how we take all of that information and really plan our professional learning to support our teachers and our leaders and all of our stakeholders really in accelerating student learning. So we're super excited to dig into that. And so at the end of the session, we hope that you'll be able to answer the question, what are our systems or schools plan and next steps for training teachers and leaders, as well as all of the other stakeholders involved in our school community to either close out 2021 strong or kick off the 21-22 school year. In the previous 5 sessions in this learning series, we've really carried you through the recommendations outlined in the Learning Acceleration Guide in greater depth. In this final session, we're going to spend about 60 minutes drafting your plan and next steps for training your teachers and leaders and all the other stakeholders in your instructional ecosystem. We are then going to take the last hour as additional work time. So again, we recognize that you all bring a variety of we recognize that you all come from a variety of different places in your organization. So some of you are systems leaders, some of you are school leaders, some of you may be teachers, some of you work at the ESUs. And so we know that you're all coming from very different places. And so we want to take you through the process pretty quickly up front, and then leave some time at the end for you to go into your breakout groups, have that time with the breakout, and then we will hang on and be on the line for questions, for support. A couple of you took us up on that offer last time, and we dug into some summer school planning for adopting summer school scope and sequence. So we will try and take you through the process pretty quickly up front so that you can work, dig into the work time, however you want to do that, whether that's on the line with us, on the line with a group of your colleagues, or off the line, and taking the process and kind of going with it on your own. And so we just want to put out there that you're not going to leave this session with a detailed plan or even any of the sessions kind of developed, but you will leave here with a rough blueprint for what your training plan might look like. And you'll also leave with a process that you can take back to your system and go through that process with them as well. All right, so let's go ahead and dig into planning our training. So Elizabeth, if you could go ahead and drop the planning handout into the chat. And I'm going to put about 1 minute on the clock and give everybody a chance to go ahead and open the document, make a copy, and skim over the handout and just kind of get your bearings straight. So I'll put 1 minute on the clock for that. All right. Okay, so if you guys want to go ahead and pull up or have that ready for you, the first step in the guide is really thinking through your stakeholders. And this might seem like a really simple step, but actually there are a lot more stakeholders than just your teachers and leaders that we have been talking about. And then what a lot of systems have found is that their list of stakeholders has actually really expanded during the pandemic. And so systems might be thinking through the healthcare workers, the policymakers, the after-school providers have been huge in many systems. And each of these stakeholders have a vital role to play as you think through both the end of the year and really accelerating learning throughout the end of the year, but also starting up for the next year. And a lot of these folks are going to be playing a vital role as we go into the next year as well. And so you want to think through what is the role that they're going to play in accelerating students' learning, and what part of the year are you going to be thinking about training them? So, for example, with instructional coaches, during the summer, they might play a really large role in the training aspect, but then during the year, they may play more of a coaching or modeling role, which is going to look really different. And so in just a moment, we're going to take some time to complete step 1 of our planning tool. And another group that you're really going to want to think about is your students and families, and what role you might want to think about in terms of training them on your acceleration as well. So what we're going to do now is we're going to break out into those breakout groups that you have requested. And you're only going to have about 15 minutes to think through this right now. But again, we're going to give you some longer planning time after we go through this process. So don't think about this as like the only time you're going to have to think through this. And so we're going to give you the time to kind of think through this. And we want you to think through both the groups of people that you have in mind, and think through your large stakeholder groups, and then kind of work down to your smaller stakeholder groups. And then In column 1, you're going to kind of list those out. In column 2, you're going to think through the role that they'll play in accelerating student learning. And so when you're thinking through that role, again, what role are they going to play and in what part of the year? So going back to that instructional coach role, they might play a role at one part in the phase and a role at another part in the phase. And so you're going to want to list both of those pieces. So we are going to go ahead and send you out during to those different breakout groups, and we will come back in about 15 minutes. So
Okay.
Elizabeth, are you
Quick.
ready to do
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, quick breakout room announcement. I have Omaha Public Schools. I assigned some people, others may ask to get assigned. I'll stay on. I have an Omaha math group specifically, an ESU group, R&R for the Rachel and Rebecca, and then a quiet work time group if you're just looking for a quiet place to work and maybe collaborate with people across the state if you're from a smaller district. And then of course you can stay in the main session and Caitlin and I will be here to support. So if you need help, let me know and I will move you around. So I just got a message from Lindsay. Give me a sec, Lindsay. I'm going to open all rooms and then I'll get everybody assigned. All right, Lindsay, you should be good. Lori, I'm adding you to the math group. Michelle, I'm adding you right now.
Thank you.
Yep. Got you, Marnie. E West XL, I'm adding you now to Omaha Math. There you go. Mary, D, Angie, are you able to choose your own group? Do you need me to assign you somewhere or are you just good with us?
I'm good here, but I can choose my group.
No, no worries.
I'm good here as well.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I'm fine here as well.
Okay, great.
Me too. Yeah, me too.
Well, we're here, so come off mute if you need help during this step of the process.
Lizzie, it's Brenda.
Hey, Brenda.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, good.
Good. I've been doing a lot of thinking about this and its application in special education.
Yeah.
And to special education. And one of the things that I'm looking at is I'm wondering, first of all, has anyone else done this with special education? Is there another state or district that's tried it? Use this?
Use this model.
With the acceleration?
Yes, I mean, for sure. Schools have done this. I'm the principal of a school in New Orleans, and we use this model, and we have 18% of our population is students with IEPs.
Disabilities. Okay.
So we do. Caitlin may know more about like districts or entire states because she comes from that lens. But definitely like schools are using this model and are talking and framing this for students with IEPs. I do
Mhm.
think you have more mindsets to unpack and a little bit more work to do there.
Yes,
So
without
it
question.
is a jump, yeah.
Yeah, it is. Part of what I'm looking at is, quite frankly, putting this together at some point and hoping someone bites and uses it as kind of a test case to
Are you
our
over
application.
special education for a whole district? What's your
No.
role?
I am a special education advisor at the Department of Education.
Okay.
So that's why I'm kind of curious, because one of the things we're looking at is our numbers in terms of reading and math in particular.
Mhm.
And both of which, of course, went down because of, first of all, limited time in direct instruction. And second, my guess is due to practice,
Yeah.
you know. And so part of what I'm thinking about, and again, I'm primarily right now just the thought leader, is trying to formulate this in a way that we can begin to give some of this to districts in a way that they can begin to use. And yes, use it, we can help them use it and operationalize it, even if it's through technical assistance at this point.
Yeah. I think, like, from your role at the department, I wonder if that first PD around just like what accelerated learning is versus remediation
Mhm.
isn't like the most important place to start.
I agree.
And I'm wondering if, I mean, we've shared that PD and we've posted it.
Yeah, no, I've been looking at Launch and been going over all of the resources and some of those pieces too. And that's why.
Yeah, TNTP has other versions of that same one. I could try
Okay.
to send you like some other PowerPoints and some of the other versions, if that makes sense, because
Yes.
there's a bunch of different ways of talking about this. And we did one like 2-hour PD, but
Mhm.
there are other like versions of that might be helpful. And I would really focus on making that shift, the shift
Okay.
from remediation or intervention as something separate to this idea of accelerated learning and just-in-time supports
Mhm.
to close those unfinished learning gaps.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's kind of where my brain is too, in terms of sharing that information,
Mhm.
you know, is
reality, giving them the more simplified thing is actually not allowing them to be successful. And also it's like
it's
that
disabling them more,
Yeah.
actually.
Yeah.
It's causing their disability to become more intensified, and it causes them to be less functional, and it causes the belief that if they get frustrated, it's the worst thing in the world.
Right.
All of which are major blocks to making progress.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Good conversation there. Yeah, Caitlin, you'll have to like reshare your screen when you go to a breakout room. It kicks you out. So just maybe reshare there. We were having a great discussion in our session. Sounds like a lot of good discussions getting done in the breakout rooms as well.
Good. This is helpful, though. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Mhm. Any other breakout rooms want to share sort of what were your key takeaways here while Caitlin gets situated? Key takeaways around stakeholders and how you can get them on board.
We had a conversation in our room about the different types of training depending on the role of the stakeholder, that sometimes you might have multiple groups of stakeholders together for the same training, but that we might need to split them up into more granular, discrete groups, depending on the type of professional learning that was happening.
I would love for Michelle or Carolyn or Lindsay to share from the Omaha group. You guys had a really great discussion about some of your community partners and the different stakeholders there. And would just I thought that would be great to hear from you all about how you're thinking about that group of people.
I can start and then Michelle fill in with anything that I missed or leave off. We talked about just how we have community service or community partners that are not, especially at our high school level, that are connected to some of our schools to support students. So teachers or instructors that are associated with our NICE program, Avenue Scholars, even our Thrive program, which is more of an after school program. But and then Michelle, I know you mentioned one more as well, but students that are providers that are providing additional supports to students, especially academically, sometimes during the classroom, as a class during the day, and sometimes as an after school or summer opportunity.
Yeah, we just thought they do capstone projects. They work with research. They are reading different types of texts in those classes. And they also help with testing a lot of the time, making sure students, so they're really a good support for students, but they can also help support teachers in some of the skill building that we're trying to work with.
And then we also had a discussion at the end, which I had to leave for real quick, but just deciding, even though our principals are instructional leaders here in OPS, that we separate them from our instructional coaches because the training looks different. And so we had a discussion towards the end about that.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, great. So we are going to head into the next piece of our planning, our next step, and we've determined who our stakeholders are, and you guys did a really nice job of digging into that. And then in step 2, we need to think about, we need to get even more granular about what training those different stakeholders need. And so you'll not only think through who's being trained, but also spend some time considering the content and the timing of the training. And so that's where we're going to spend the lion's share of our time together today. So in presenting, so we're going to break out in a few minutes, and we've shared kind of the high level table of all the trainings that we've gone through, and we've kind of put it in multiple sections of planning, acceleration, the diagnostics, pacing, instruction, and monitoring. Those are kind of like the big buckets that we've thought through. And this actually might not represent the full list of topics that you'll need to kind of train your stakeholders in when you think about this bucket of acceleration. So we left an other section there in case there were other pieces that you felt like you wanted to train your stakeholders in around this idea of learning acceleration. And obviously, this doesn't touch on all the other millions of things that you need to train your stakeholders in. And that includes things, like how to set up your classroom, how to do behavior management, and all of those million other things that you need to train. So don't go crazy with all the hundreds of things that you need to train your stakeholders on. Try and stay focused on just the learning acceleration piece, because you're going to definitely have to add in all those other trainings as well. but there's other people you're probably going to want at the table when you start to discuss those things. And so our table includes a few examples of the key stakeholders, but feel free to change them. We've left off students, but there is a piece for families there. I think when most people get back in the fall, you're also going to want to train your students as well in what instruction is going to look like for them, especially if there's some aspect of hybrid learning still. But I know that most of you guys are going to be back fully in person, in which case you won't need to do any specific training for your students. And then column 3 is a facilitator. When you're thinking about the facilitator for the training, I think a lot of times we jump to, oh, it has to be the instructional coach, or it has to be the principal of the school. And I think the last, year and a half or year has really opened up our minds to the power of virtual learning. And that's including for teachers. And I think what this year has really showed us is that we can really have our best facilitators from across the state, from across the country even, but definitely across the state, across the district. And so when you think of the facilitator, think about who is really going to be the best person to put in front of your teachers, to put in front of your families, to put in front of your school leaders, in order to train these folks. And if that is, you have this really amazing instructional coach, and she sits at one campus, but she would be great to give a training on, accelerating math instruction to the whole district. That's more possible than it's ever been because of the power of virtual learning, even for adults. And then objectives, you'll want to give broad overarching objectives. Don't get too bogged down in this piece right now. And then again, the last thing that you want to think about are dates and times. I think one thing that we can get that can box us in is when you only think of the time that you have and say, oh, well, we only have, a week before school starts, or we have these 3 professional development days on the calendar. And then you kind of box yourself in. Whereas I think if you say, hey, these are all the great things that we want to train on, and then we can find the time for that, right? And people are really great at finding the time, whether that's sticking it into a planning meeting, holding optional PD, different things like that. I think do the objectives first, do the trainings that you want to have first, and then work on finding the time for it later. That's going to be the way that you want to kind of think about this and approach this. Okay, we're about to go into kind of some longer times for breakouts. We're going to take about 20 minutes, maybe even a little bit longer. And so I'm going to set the timer for 20 minutes, but if people are kind of rocking and rolling, we're going to leave it for a little bit longer. And then we're going to come back and do some sharing out. And then that's when we'll do some, we'll formally end it, and then also give you more work time after that if you want it. So before we go into any breakouts, are there any questions? Great. All right, Elizabeth, can you go ahead and put people in their breakout rooms? All right. I think we have everyone back now. Yes? Okay. Great. So as you were planning, what new ideas or questions came up for some training that you want to do for or implement with your teachers and leaders? You can either put it in the chat or come off of mute.
What was the question again? I'm sorry, I had to run and take care of my pet.
No worries. It's on the slide. So as you guys were thinking and planning, what new ideas or questions came up for things that you want to, or trainings that you want to implement with your teachers, leaders, community stakeholders?
Well, we just talked in our group a lot about how we need teachers to understand the why and really get a better understanding of the importance of acceleration and buy into that. And so we were talking about what kind of experiences could we provide for teachers so that they really could get a better understanding. And we did bring up that learning acceleration guide and our reading from our very first session, because that was something that we drew a lot from as far as getting to know the language a little bit better and just clarifying our own thinking about acceleration. And so we did talk about using that for a resource and see if we can come up with some kind of really good experiences where teachers could experience that thinking as learners. We don't really have specifics, but we thought we wanted something like that for teachers.
Yeah, and you guys were starting to come up with and brainstorm some pretty good ideas for how you could put your teachers or your adults into that learner space, and get them to see what that might feel like when they were uncertain about taking on either a math task or something like that. And even without the background knowledge that might be required for that task, how you could still get them to complete that. I thought that was pretty cool. Some really good ideas. Virginia, do you want to talk to us about your parent night?
We just talked a bit about how do we get our parents involved and how much, and especially from what I hear, the elementary does a great job with some math nights, et cetera, like that with their schools right now. And how if we advertise it at the district level, because it's a lot to put on the schools, but that we offer what Zern looks like and what our math would look like and show the video, have some question and answer periods. And our parents have gotten very good with the online conferencing. So to use that same format. I did mention that I would have to get some training in that, but our parents seem to do pretty good at learning how to use Teams with our kids in Omaha. So I think to get the parents involved and to have the support materials that Zern has for parents available to them through their child's Clever account, we think we have to check on that. That's where we went with that.
Yeah, I love that. That's a really great idea. Any other ideas that you all were talking about, or any questions that you guys had that came up? All right. Okay, so in the chat, before we break for one more time, I would love to have you share one next step that you are committing to around training for either the summer, because I know some of you guys were talking about summer school. So one next step that you are committing to for training, either for the summer or for learning acceleration in the fall. And you can put that in the chat. Thank you, Lisa. So training that goes beyond just teachers and school leaders. Making sure to embed acceleration focus. I love that. Thank you, Marnie. Work embedded training. Great, these are awesome. Use some of the language from, yep, love this. More complex texts. Okay, great, keep them coming. As you're putting in your next steps into the chat, I'm going to talk about how we're going to use the rest of our time. If you want to continue working on this document for planning your training, you are welcome to stay here in the main room. If you want to continue working in your groups, we can put you back in your groups. Just send a chat to Nebraska Professional Training. If you want to continue working on this on your own, or if you have people who are not here that are preventing you from doing this work fully, you're fine to take what you've learned today and go off and do this with those folks who aren't here today. We will be on as long as you need us to support you. It looks like you guys have some great next steps. So just let us know how we can be useful and how in using this these next 45 minutes of the time. And other than that, Elizabeth, did you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I'll open the breakout rooms. If anyone needs to change rooms, let me know, but those same rooms will be open and available, and we'll stay on to support.
Other than that, thank you all, and we hope to see you next week to talk about systems and supports.